that is not unto death. What is he talking about? A sin unto death and a sin that is not unto death. Now, the sin unto death, this is spiritual. This is a sin. When you commit this sin, you die spiritually. Spiritually. This one is a spiritual. This spiritual death, when you sin a sin unto death, is when you die spiritually. This spiritual death is simple. Separation from God. A sin not unto death is a sin that you do. It will not affect you spiritually, but it is going to affect. This is going to affect your soul and body. And let me give an example. We have got bylaws and we have got laws. There are things, even when you go to the government. Let me use the government so that you can understand spiritual things. Right now, if you go and urinate outside there, there's no police that is going to come for you with a gun. That is work of city council. If you throw a paper on the floor, those are called bylaws. You will not see that paper that you have thrown on the floor will never put you in committee prison. That urinating there it will not put you in committee. It is dealt with by city council. We have got the city council officers. The city council officers, when you break these bylaws, they are called bylaws. They are called small laws. That when you break them, they are not very serious. But they have a penalty. They have a penalty. But they are not termed as serious. They are not very serious. If you go and you overlap, you overtake where there is a yellow line, and you get in trouble. When you run a red light, you will go to court, but this court is city council court. City council court. They are dealing with bylaws, and these bylaws you're going to deal for them. You're going to pay for them. There's a penalty for them. So these are bylaws. But there's something that if you do, you're going to see another side of government. And this one has got to do with the armed police. If you commit robbery with violence, if you commit robbery or murder, the ones who will come for you are not city council. And if they get you, and if they commit you committing these sins, coming out will be another long story. That one they will come. It's not city council that is going to deal with you. You're going to be dealt with another level. So is the state of righteousness. We have got the sin that is unto death. If you commit these sins, you die spiritually. And we have got bylaws, for example, and that's why you see sometimes the church has taken for granted. And understand this verse. John is writing, and he says, do not pity these ones who are sinning not unto death. For example, it is going to affect your soul, it's going to affect your body. It's going to affect you. For example, when we talk of dressing in church, let's talk about dressing. No, dressing is not a sin unto spiritual death. That's why you can see ministers of the gospel, they can put on shorts and come to church. And put on shorts and anakuja kanisa. That it is a sin, yes, but not unto death. It does not separate you from God. But it affects the morals of that generation. It's going to affect the soul. It is going to affect the body. It's going to affect, definitely. It has got influence. And that dressing now is going to cause moral decay. So he's saying, don't pray for this sin that is not unto death. It also needs to be dealt with so that you can fulfill all righteousness. Now, the reason why I put them both like this is because when we come into confession, these are the sins that you can confess by yourself. The sins are not unto death, you can confess by yourself. What did you do by yourself? I threw a paper on the road when I was coming. That one you can confess by yourself. But these are the sins that are unto death. They have to be confessed publicly. Publicly. These are the sins that are termed as grave or serious. If you commit them, then you deserve. In the Old Testament, it was death. It was death. And what are them? Now let's go. The first one, and in fact, they are, in short, the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments. Now, in the 10 Commandments, let's begin with number 1. In Exodus chapter 20, Exodus chapter 20. This is what God terms as serious. He terms it as serious. In Exodus chapter 20 verse 1, and God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which has brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Verse 3, thou shalt have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before me. Now, when we talk about having other gods before us, I want to break it down a little bit so that we can understand why does God take it as a serious sin? He takes it as a serious sin. Let me combine it, reading it up to verse 5. Verse 4 says, for thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness or anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Verse 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. And verse 6, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. That's number one. This is stamped as the number one. How does this manifest? It manifests by idolatry. Idolatry. God takes idolatry as one of the number one sins. Because when idolatry is there, it is in fact a principality. Idolatry is a principality that turns people away from God. The spirit of idolatry also goes with the spirit of atheism. Atheism. If in your life, at one point, you doubt the existence of God and you feel like there is no God, there was a discussion. We have got the evolution theory. Evolution theory. In evolution, we have got two things here. We have got the creation account and evolution. And it is a theory. It's a theory. See, this evolution theory, Charles, is it Darwin, whatever? Yeah? Charles Darwin is the one who came up with evolution theory. Evolution theory says something came from nothing. It has been tested, and you can test it from yourself. How does something come out from nothing? How does something come? But the creation account tells us that we came to being, that the designer, we have a designer that has created a design. The designer. We have come, in the beginning God created. So we have a source. The creation account tells us there is a maker. There is the creator of the heavens and the earth. And then Charles Darwin tells us we came from nothing. There was a nothing, and that nothing has brought something. How does it exist that nothing has brought something? So he says there is no God. So Psalms 14 and verse 1, Psalms 14 and verse 1 is very clear. The fool doesn't have to come and say. You can tell the fool by his actions. It's not, you see, this story that is told of this, it was like our Madare. You know how Madare is? The teacher entered there, and these students, they said, today I'm teaching you, and he wanted to test if the children are normal. And so he went on the blackboard and drew a door like this. With hinges. And he told them, now what you are going to do, what we are going to do right now, I want you students to come out through this door. On the blackboard. So all the students came, and one was looking for the door like this, another was trying to get in, and everyone was trying to pass through the door. He said, but one stayed sitting down. He said, for sure I've got one noble person here. Our in Guinea, their wives have gone. These ones, all of them are gone. Says, hey, tell me so and so, why are you sitting down? He said, you know what? I have the key to the door. So he was what? I've got the key to that door that everyone is trying to get. So there's no need for me to stand up. And the fool is known by his actions. And if humanity is under attack, and let me tell you, the issue that we are facing right now in humanity, I was talking to Bishop George Obare, is around. I tell him, tell me about the gospel in UK. He said, right now the gospel in UK, you can't speak to somebody about God. It's against the law. You can't speak to me about faith. Don't speak to me about faith. And he says, you will be arrested now. It is now like a criminal offense to preach in an open air, to preach and tell somebody about faith. It's like a criminal offense right now to tell somebody about faith. You can only tell somebody about faith by network. That you know somebody, that you know somebody. But you go to a total stranger and tell him, I want to tell you about the Lord Jesus. He said, even if you give them the person will pick it and throw it in the dustbin when you're seeing it. In the dustbin and throw it when you're seeing. Why? Because our generation we have never risen so many people that are in evolution theory. They are in idolatry and atheism. They are committing the sin unto death, number one, is at its highest peak right now. That is what they're doing. So he says, he has said, this fool has said, there is no God. There is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Also Psalms 53 and verse 1 also gives us in creation account, as you get there, also 53 says, the fool has said in his heart, again, there is no God, corrupt are they. They have done abominable iniquity, there is none that doeth good, the same verse. In creation account is that seed. Created everything after give to, because I'm not talking about the creation, after its kind, And we come from different DNA. Now, you see, let me explain verse 2. When God was creating, He created each and everything after its kind. When we are talking about seeds, when we are talking about man, there's a flesh for birds, there's a flesh for fish, there's a flesh of beasts, and there's a flesh of man. And the DNA that is in a fish is not the same DNA that is in a bird. The DNA in a bird is not the DNA that is in a goat. All these animals that you see. They have different DNA. Everything after its kind. Then evolution tells you we come out from the same DNA that is in a fish can produce a goat, a cow. It's not possible. It's not possible for a DNA that is in another animal to produce a human being. And that's why a human being can never be a monkey. You can never be a monkey. Why? The DNA in a monkey cannot produce a human DNA. So evolution says that we came from monkeys. How? Then why do we still have monkeys? See, all of them would have now changed. But each and everything after its kind. If it is an avocado tree, it's an avocado tree. There's no day you'll go to an avocado tree and you find there and say, wow, majabu ya Musa. I saw somebody making jokes on internet. How to get to produce lemon chicks. Lemon chicks. So he took a lemon tree. I said, I can't watch it. It's wasting of time. I went quickly to the comments. Because it's not possible. And the picture, he had shown the picture. And you know what was on the hanging on the lemon tree? Eggs. Eggs. I said, I cannot watch this foolishness. Eggs. Kwa lemon tree. Eggs. So he says, this is how to produce lemon chicks from a lemon tree. Then he cracks one and then he removes a chicken out of it and says, this chicken has come out from a lemon tree. And when I read the comments, the person was saying, oh, very great. I'm now a millionaire. I've produced so many lemon chicks. I knew this new Wongo. And all the people there, and then under there were a lot of people who abused him. You wasted my data, all that and all that. It is because there's no time you will get a chick without a hen and a cockerel. There's that order is there. So evolution, when you think about it, even rationally thinking, you find man can be totally deceived. That's why he says, a fool. And this is a sin unto day. God does not take it lightly when you say he doesn't exist. He doesn't take it lightly. When you say that I don't exist, you say there is no God. It's punishable. Now, this idolatry, atheism, leads to what is called the occult. Occult. So it's to corrupt. When we read in the book of Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. Idolatry corrupts worship. In Revelation chapter 13, let me read it, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. You can imagine that. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Blasphemy, blasphemy. Presiding Bishop is going to begin a class to teach us about the book of Revelation. So I'll just do the mention very quickly. And verse 2 says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power, and his seat and great authority. You can imagine this beast has got great authority and power. What is its power? Verse 3 says, and I saw one of his heads as it were the wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And verse 4 says, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him. In the book of Revelation chapter 13, this is the revealing of the mystery of iniquity that causes man to worship the beast. It causes all men and all people. It says there, when you read verse 14, and deceiveth them, he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he hath power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and didn't live. And verse 15 says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So he deceived the whole world, and the image of this beast is idolatry, the principality. What is idolatry? Anything else that takes the place of God in your life. Anything that takes the place of God in your life is an idol. It's an idol. So that is the prince of the power of the air. This is what he causes. He causes men, old, young, all, to bow down and worship in idolatry. Then he introduces, if you enter into idolatry, you're taken out of the way. If you say there is no God, you'll find yourself going to the occult. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, atheism, having other gods before me. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Deuteronomy chapter 18. And verse 9. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 9. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn. The Bible is warning us not to learn after the abomination of those nations. Don't learn from those nations. These were the seed of the fallen. You find in Genesis chapter 6, when man became corrupt. Then the flood of Noah in Genesis chapter 8. Then after the flood of Noah, we have the 8 souls that now, and after the 8 souls, they become corrupt again. They become corrupt again. And as they become corrupt again, these are the nations that we saw, the Hittites, the Jebusites. Just to mention some of them, this is in Deuteronomy chapter 7. Deuteronomy chapter 7, let me just mention them, the 7 nations, and verse 1. When the Lord thy God bringeth thee, Deuteronomy 7 verse 1, into the land where thou goest to possess it, and has cast out many nations before thee. These were the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. So God was saying, do not go after them. Let's read verse 5, verse 4. Then Deuteronomy 7 verse 4. For they will turn away thy son, they will turn away your son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. The first and great commandment is number 1, you shall have no other gods before me. It goes with the New Testament, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. When you break this first commandment, it is the greatest sin that you could do. Because you have now turned God against you. You have turned your Creator against you. You have turned your Maker against you. So definitely, you are become an enemy of God through idolatry. So it says in verse 5, but thus shall you deal with them. You shall destroy their altars. Bring down the altars. Bring down their images. Cut down their groves. Burn their graven images with fire. Verse 6, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So we see God now going back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. We go back to Deuteronomy chapter 18. There's a sin, an automatic sin unto death. And Deuteronomy chapter 18, now we had read verse 9. Now let's read verse 10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, who is going to this is what God terms as grave divination. This is a sin unto death. Let me write them here now. There's when you go to a diviner, we have got divination. 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 Divination is to foretell future events by the powers of darkness. That's a divination. So you are telling about things to come. No, there's so much witchcraft the time that we are living in right now, that you find now those who have entered into lottery, those who have entered into gambling, in predicting. We had the African Cups of Nation, and there was one diviner that was predicting who is going to win between Nigeria and South Africa. So you go to a diviner to tell future events. Future events. That's it. But this is not the gift of prophecy. This is divination because it is using the powers of darkness to tell. To tell. Now, if as a human being you go to a diviner to tell you about your life, that is the beginning of your problems. Those who say, I want to know what is in my life. So you go to a diviner to tell you what is in your life. You know, I was just being told just today about somebody he has gone everywhere looking for diviners to tell him what is the problem with his life, and he has never gotten the answer. And you know, it's not a joke. You go, you'll give a cow, you will give money, 100,000, you'll give whatever he tells you. A black cow, he tells you to give a goat, you tell you to give chicken, you're going to do that. So God says, if you ever go to a diviner, you are breaking my first commandment. And because you are breaking my first commandment, you have turned yourself, things against yourself. The devil has a right to enter into your life because you have seen a diviner. You have gone to seek help to tell future events. And the Bible is clear here in Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. And I will explain that as we continue. Or that useth divination. A diviner goes whither, then he says, after you use divination, you will not observe. Now, let me put them here in order. Number one, to pass through the fire. 2, divination. 3, observe. Observer of times. Observer of times. These are stars. Stars. We're in the month of February. And we have got Valentine's coming next week on Wednesday. Don't bewitch yourself to celebrate Valentine's. Don't bewitch yourself to celebrate Valentine's. This is for the unmarried, so as the married. You say, I'm married now, I have crossed there, so you will bewitch your marriage. I say, this is a month of love. Who told you it's a month of love? Who told you it's a month of love? Unless you redeem it, you shall love the Lord your God. Come to church. We will have a midweek service and we'll be here. And we're not celebrating any other love but the love of God. Will be here in the house of God. So if you observe that time, there's something that you're activating. You're inviting the kingdom of darkness to enter your relationship. And how does he enter your relationship? He enters through misunderstanding. He enters through the spirit of divorce. He enters through distraction. He enters by mistrust. So you're inviting the devil officially. You know, you're opening him officially to tell him to come. Then, and these, you're wondering, these are grave sins that God doesn't take lightly. Because what? They're affecting your spirit. It affects your spirit. So, time is very important, but we observe God's appointed times. The God Moed, like we're having in April, we'll be having the Passover. That is going to be God's Moed, God's appointed time, ushering the 5 feasts, and we are going to enter into them. And by the time we reach August, we will be having our convention, which is God's Moed, when he gathers his people together. Those are the ones we observe. But we don't observe the one in the newspaper that you go and say, today is my star. It's a month of one. Let me see. What is my star? What is your star, by the way? I'm observing my star. That is how these are the sins that God does not take lightly, that have to be confessed. He says, you not observer of those times. Okay, moving to the next time. Number 4, enchanter. Or enchant, this is a enchanter. Who is an enchanter? Enchanter is a person who influence. The word is influence. Let me use the word influence, but explain it with he can influence using charms. Let me give an example. They work together. You go to an enchanter, will tell you, now you want so and so to love you. You're going to go take some money. So it gives you treated money. This one. Father, then you're at 3 in the morning, you'll wake up, not to come to church. You'll wake up when people are sleeping. You wake up to do enchantment. Speak to that money. This money, as I give it to so and so, is going to love me. And you mention her name. Mention her name. That is what is called enchantment. Then you come and say, today, and nimeguswa niko bless. And say, hey, so and so, I feel I love so and so. That is called enchantment. When you speak over things and charms, I've just used money, but you can use whatever. You can use even food. You can speak to it. You can speak to many things, clothes, things. It is wide. And I'm not studying witchcraft. And we are not studying witchcraft. But that is the point. Now, a witch, we're in Deuteronomy 18 and verse 10. You will not go to a witch. 5. The Bible is clear, and when you get time to read it, then you find yourself. A witch is a woman who uses. So, 6, a wizard is the male one. A witch is a woman, and a wizard is a man. But all of these are using the powers of darkness to either you do divination or enchant or use witchcraft. So they use spells. They use spells. We had one who went. This is where I think in 1 Samuel chapter 28. This is where I will wind up to the first king of Israel that God repented ever choosing. So 1 Samuel chapter 28, we begin in verse 1. 1 Samuel 28. And verse 1 says, "And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel." That's why we talk about spiritual warfare. And that's why we have to watch and pray without ceasing. We are in constant spiritual warfare, spiritual battles. That's why you see, we're in a time of seeking the face of God, but you find people are still struggling to praise. They are struggling to fast. They are struggling. Why? We are wrestled not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. And you see, somebody has not come to church. Oh, there are things that are happening behind the scene. So we are always in constant warfare with the kingdom of darkness. So it says they were fighting with Israel. And Achish said unto David, "Now thou," let me read. "Now know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men." And verse 2 says, "And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever." Verse 3 says, "Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa." Verse 5 says, "And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled." Verse 6 says, "And when Saul inquired of God, Saul went to pray." A king could not go to battle without inquiring of the Lord. You have to ask God, what would you want? Am I going to win this battle? Should I go? What do you want me to do? Just as we have begun the year 2024, we began and we have many questions you want to ask. There are questions that we would want to know. You'd want to know the same questions that you take to a diviner are the same questions you should take to God. So instead of going to a diviner, which people take as a shortcut, like so somebody would die. Say, "I'm going to a diviner to tell me why so and so died." See, death is upon a man wants to die. But he sought God. God did not speak to him in dreams, in Urim, nor by prophets. God did not speak to him. Urim was, there was these stones that you would use. And maybe that's why the game of dices came from. You say, God, if you throw it like this and you put, if it is going to come green, then you will know that I should go for warfare. So you shake it like this, then you throw it down like this. So you would, no heads, no tails. God was not speaking to him in any way of those. So you can see who God chose and appointed. You can fall out of grace. Verse 7. "And when Saul said unto his servant, Seek me a woman, seek for me a woman, a witch, that has a familiar spirit, that I may go to her, inquire of her. And his servant said unto him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit, an endo." And verse 8 says, "And Saul disguised himself, put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night." And he said, "I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. Now this is a discussion for another day, because Samuel came. Was it Samuel? Was it Samuel? And the point is this, that God had said in Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 10, you are not supposed to go to a diviner. In fact, you are supposed to destroy their altars. You are supposed to bring down their images. We are supposed to bring down. But what have we done in the time that we are in? We have entered into idolatry. Idolatry, when it has given birth, it brings us to atheism, and atheism is where we find the occult. And so, where there is witchcraft in the family lane, either by immediate family, by sibling, either by parent, mother, father, either by relative, cousin, uncle, where you move now to grandparents, great-grandparents, you find God visiting the iniquity of them that hate God. And so then we read in Lamentation that now they have sinned and they are not, and you have bore the iniquities. So there is need for you to study your lineage, your genealogy. You have to study it very well, because if that sin of iniquity has been done, then you'll find yourself suffering without you wondering what is going wrong. I want to read for us about some time back two types of genealogies. One, an atheist, and another one that was a Christian. Let's begin with an atheist. There was this atheist that was known as, was doing some research, is known as Max Jukes. He was an atheist and he got married to a godless woman. Rather, come we stay. Not marriage. Come we stay. Because if you an atheist, don't believe in God, why should you bring your marriage before God? So it is a come we stay. So when he did that, they were tracing 560 of his descendants up to the year 18th century. So 310 died poor. Out of 560, 310 died poor. Wabaki wangapi? 310 in that lineage of 560. These 310 died poor. 150 became criminals. 150 became criminals. The criminal offenses are these offenses that you go in, you are put into remand and you are sentenced to life. These are the kind of criminals we're talking about. 150 from two. From two. Who said there is no God? From a couple. Let me say one couple because they became one. From one couple that took the things of God lightly. You see, when I see sometimes somebody anakwambia nililala nilisikia tu sisikii kuja kanisani. You'll produce criminals. You will produce poor people. Who wants their children tomorrow to be begging on the street? You're begging, you're asking. Who wants? Who wants their child that tomorrow you're told, this one is a thief, this is a murderer? When you take the things lightly of God, God will take also your lineage lightly. He withdraws his grace. He withdraws his favor. While you are dead, your sins will still be speaking. In the children, 100 became drunkards. A 100 became drunkards. And more than half of the women became prostitutes. Prostitution. They were saying the descendants of this guy cost the American head of American nation, United States of America, $81.25 million. They cost the government loss. Imagine, they cost them loss. In calculation of an estimation of 81, multiply 81 million by 160 now. That is what a godless person can do. One godless person can cause too much distraction in a generation. So when you take your walk with God lightly, when you take Christianity lightly, you are setting yourself up for a lot of distraction. Now the opposite was a man called Jonathan Edwards, was a Christian. He put God first in his life by honoring God, and he married a Christian woman, and they traced 1,394 descendants, of which now 295 of them became graduates from college. When you remove God, you'll produce a lot of dropouts. Where is witchcraft? You will produce a lot of dropouts. 295 graduated from college. And 65 of them, out of this 13, you can see, first, they are more fruitful. They are fruitful. You know, where God is, there is fruitfulness. There's fruitfulness. So they were more than the rest, but these ones caused a lot of trouble than these ones. So 65 of these ones became professors, and 13 of them became college presidents. You know what college presidents? Those are the people that rule, the top man, the counselor, who is the top in the 13 of them. 3 became senators in America. 3 became senators. 3 became state governors. And others became pastors. They produced pastors. They produced 30 judges. 100 were lawyers. I'm just talking about the 13. 100 were lawyers. And 5 became doctors. 75 became officers in the military. 100 became missionaries and preachers. And prominent others. 80 held public offices. 3 became mayors. 1 became the vice president of the United States of America. It says none was a liability to the government. None of them cost the government. None was a liability. In fact, they added value to the society. You know, when you pass our wines and spirit and you find some men drinking alcohol and chewing mirror, they're chewing mirror, they are setting up the next generation for trouble. You should have a burden. When you preach, you say, God, we claim these souls. God, we claim these souls. When you see the church like the way we are now, it means it is only God's mercy. Because most are in idolatry. And in this, you are shaping the generation. If you don't honor God, the generation that is sending children to go to church and then the parent remains sleeping. God have mercy. God have mercy. You are sending the child to come to church. You yourself, you remain watching television and eating food there. You expect things are going to go, you're going to be a liability. So by the time we reach to a state where we are right now as a nation, there are a lot of things that we have to bring into account for God to overturn and to bring restitution in this nation. It's not just a simple prayer like the one you're saying. People have to fast. We have to deal with idolatry in the nation. And where does it begin with? First, the church. If in the church, you will see in the church that the ministers themselves fast. The ministers themselves have got idolatry. Themselves, they put other things ahead. The same anointing goes to the leaders, the same associate pastors, the same anointing goes to the member. So you have to be careful the church you go through. That pastor is releasing the anointing that is upon his life upon you. He releases it and it goes and it flows, because the anointing does not flow from the feet, it flows from the head going down. And that's why sometimes, I feel angered a bit, because the zeal I have, sometimes I don't see it in us as a church. The zeal for the things of God. The zeal that I have for the things of God and the things I see. When we are on Sunday service, in the second service, I see that, where are these ones? Where have they been? I want to wind up there so that we can pray and ask God. That's why Daniel repented in Daniel chapter 9. He repented of his sins and the sins of the people. The sins of the people. And the greatest, God hates idolatry. God hates atheism. God hates the occult. When you go and his position, if it is not given in your heart, his position is in your heart. This is the mystery. Christ in you, the hope of glory. If in your heart money has taken, if it is your heart, your husband, if it's your heart, child, if it is in your heart, business, that is idolatry. And that is what the devil has put the generation that we are in. It's a sin unto death. It's a sin unto death. God departs from the people and he allows now judgment to come in. That's why the theme is sow yourself in righteousness and reap in the mercies of God. We have a few minutes to repent and call on the name of God. For our generation that is astray, we are astray, we have not honored God. And he says, cursed is he that serves God deceitfully. Father, this evening, we lift up our voices to you. We have sinned the sin unto death as a generation, as a people.